But now Dave Chappelle has always been funnier than me. And Chris Rock has always been funnier than me. I've always been aware of who was funnier than me. I've just also been aware of who wasn't.
Two names, two legends, two comedians who built careers on saying what absolutely nobody else had the guts to say out loud. Katt Williams, Dave Chappelle. These are not just funny men. These are the most dangerous men in any room with a microphone, because they see everything, they remember everything, and when the moment is right, they will roast you into another dimension without breaking a sweat. And today, we're counting down 13 of the most brutal, most hilarious, most jaw-dropping moments when these two comedy gods set their sights on the rap world and left zero survivors. Now, before we get into it, drop a comment right now. Who do you think is more savage, Katt Williams or Dave Chappelle? We're keeping score in the comments, and we want your vote before this video is over. Let's see which legend runs this poll. All right, you ready? Because some of these moments are going to hit different once you hear them back to back. Let's get into it. Here's the thing about Katt Williams and Dave Chappelle that separates them from every other comedian in the game. Most comics make you laugh with the celebrity. These two make you laugh at them. And the celebrity doesn't always see it coming. Over the years, hip-hop has handed these men more material than they could ever use. From rappers changing their names every 6 months, to rappers pulling guns that are apparently purple. Yes, we'll get there. The rap world has been an endless buffet, and Katt and Chappelle have eaten royally. What makes these moments so special is that neither of them is laughing out of hate. This is what real comedy does. It holds up a mirror. And sometimes that mirror is in the shape of a joke so sharp it slices through nonsense like a blade. Let's count them down. Moment number 13. Katt Williams on rappers who've never been to jail. We start things off with a moment that stopped people cold. Number 13 on our list, and already Katt Williams is drawing blood. During one of his legendary sets, Katt turned his spotlight onto a very specific type of rapper. You know the type. The kind who walks around with 3 face tattoos, raps about shooting people every other bar, talks about doing federal time, and has never so much as gotten a parking ticket. Here's what Katt said, and pay close attention because this is the kind of insight that only comes from someone who has actually lived a complicated life. Even like in the rap world, all of the rappers that you know that never been to jail and never got in any trouble with the law, but they talk as if their life is opposite of that. Like those are federal informants. Pause. Let that land for a second. Katt Williams didn't just roast rappers for lying about their lifestyle. He called them federal informants, not fake, not frauds, informants. That is a different level of accusation, and the fact that he delivered it like a throwaway line in the middle of a comedy set makes it 10 times more devastating. Think about how long the conversation around rap authenticity has been going on. How many documentaries, how many Twitter beefs, how many diss tracks have been made about this exact subject? And Katt Williams settled the entire debate in one sentence. In a comedy club, while people were still eating their 2-drink minimums. This is why Katt Williams is feared in entertainment. He doesn't need a diss track. He doesn't need an interview. He just needs 5 seconds with a microphone. But here's what makes this moment even more interesting. Katt wasn't just clowning. He was making a cultural observation that people in the streets had been making for years. He just gave it a punchline. Who do you think he was talking about? Drop some names in the comments. We're not going to say it, but we know you know. And knowing Katt, he probably knew too. Moment number 12. Katt Williams roasts 50 Cent Squarehead. Now number 12 takes us to a very specific physical feature that Katt Williams simply could not let go. 50 Cent, multi-platinum rapper, businessman, producer, and apparently, according to Katt Williams, the proud owner of one of the most geometrically perfect squareheads in the history of Hollywood. Now, 50 Cent has been beefing with half the entertainment industry at any given moment. He's notoriously hard to shake. The man got shot 9 times and still dropped a debut album. You're not going to rattle 50 Cent easily. But Katt Williams? Katt Williams found the one thing that made the entire audience lose their mind. Here's what Katt said. "You got a head like a square. Only 2 square-headed men have made it in Hollywood. You and Herman Munster." Herman Munster. Not just a square head comparison, a Herman Munster comparison from a 1960s sitcom. Katt Williams went back decades to find the perfect reference, and when he found it, he deployed it like a heat-seeking missile. The crowd didn't just laugh, they combusted. What makes this moment brilliant is the layering. Katt wasn't just clowning 50 for the look, he was undercutting the whole tough guy image. Because once someone compares you to Herman Munster, and everyone in the room agrees, the bulletproof vest narrative gets a little hard to maintain. Now here's the question you need to ask yourself. Is 50 Cent's head actually square? Be honest. Go look at a photo after this video, then come back and tell us if Katt lied. We'll wait. Moment number 11. Katt Williams on Shaquille O'Neal wanting to be a sheriff. Number 11 might be the most unhinged Katt Williams segment ever recorded in front of a live audience, and it is an absolute masterpiece. Shaquille O'Neal. The man is 7 feet 1 inch, played for 6 NBA teams, has multiple championship rings, has appeared in feature films, and at some point in his life decided what he really wanted to do was become a law enforcement officer. A reserve sheriff's deputy, to be exact. Now most people just let that go. It's Shaq. He's a friendly giant. Let the man be a deputy if he wants to be a deputy. Katt Williams is not most people. This motherfucker got enough money to be whatever the hell he want to be his whole life. What the fee does this Nundio want to be a goddamn sheriff? And then Katt hit him with the logic nobody had considered. The undercover problem. You can't even go undercover. Do you have any drugs? No, Shaq? You know that's your motherfucking ass. The visual Katt creates here is devastating. 7'1" Shaquille O'Neal attempting to go undercover on a drug sting operation. Nobody in the history of law enforcement has ever been less suited for covert operations. Katt saw that immediately. The audience saw that immediately, and they destroyed the room. But wait, because Katt wasn't done. He went after Shaq's free throw shooting in the context of a real-world confrontation. Could you make a free throw? You want that nen? Not to shoot you? You gotta dress up like a basket. Katt Williams just suggested that the only way to defeat Shaquille O'Neal in a gunfight is to wear a basketball hoop costume. This is comedy operating at a frequency that shouldn't be legal. And then, because Katt saves his most personal shots for people he actually cares about, he pivoted to Shaq's wife and kids, pointing out that Shaq's wife is more intimidating than Shaq, that she birthed gargantuan babies, and that Shaq's actual power dynamic at home is nothing like his public image. The reason this works so well is that you can tell Katt genuinely loves Shaq. That's the only reason he has this much material. Real friendship produces real ammunition. Moment number 10. Dave Chappelle's Making the Band parody. Number 10, and we're shifting to Dave Chappelle, specifically to a sketch that aged so differently after recent events that it almost doesn't feel like comedy anymore. Almost. The Making the Band parody. For those who weren't watching Chappelle's show back in 2003 and 2004, you need to understand what this sketch captured. Making the Band was the reality show where Diddy put aspiring artists through increasingly ridiculous tasks to prove their loyalty and dedication. Tasks that, looking back, raised a lot of questions that the culture is only now fully unpacking. Chappelle's show had a recurring segment where Dave played a Diddy-like character who kept assigning the most absurd, degrading, and strangely specific tasks to people who just wanted to make music. First, y'all gotta walk to Queens and get me a sugar cookie. Y'all gotta walk uptown to the Bronx and get breast milk from a Cambodian immigrant. In 2004, this was absurdist satire, a parody of celebrity excess and the power dynamics in the music industry. It was outrageous precisely because it seemed too outrageous to be real. Now, people watch this sketch and get very quiet very fast. Dave Chappelle has said in interviews that he left his show partly because some of the humor stopped feeling purely like jokes to him, like he was laughing at things he didn't fully understand yet. The Making the Band parody is one of those moments where comedy intersected with something that, in hindsight, feels uncomfortably close to documented reality. The genius of Chappelle is that he wasn't making stuff up. He was exaggerating observable behavior. And sometimes when a comedian exaggerates observable behavior by only 10%, the result is more disturbing than funny. We're listing it as a moment of hilarity, because in its original context, it absolutely was. But we'd be doing you a disservice if we didn't acknowledge that in 2024 and 2025, this bit hit a completely different cultural nerve. Chappelle saw something years before the rest of us did. Moment number 9. Dave Chappelle destroys Diddy at his stand-up show in LA. Number 9, and this is where it gets serious, or rather, where something serious gets treated with the kind of comedic precision only Chappelle can deploy. When the allegations and eventually the arrests surrounding Diddy became national news, Dave Chappelle did what Dave Chappelle does. He stood on stage in Los Angeles and said what everyone was thinking, but in the funniest possible way. He walked out and told the crowd he was tired of the media making Los Angeles look bad, like the city was full of criminals and drug addicts. And then he stopped. That is a very small, specific section of the city, and it's called Diddy's house. The room went up, because that's the move. One sentence, maximum devastation, no extended setup, no belabored explanation, just the surgical removal of any need to say more. But Chappelle kept going, and this is where the real comedy craftsmanship shows. He started musing about the actual question on everyone's mind, whether Diddy would be found guilty. And he landed on this. The only reason I think he might be guilty is the evidence. The evidence is This is classic Chappelle logic. The reasoning is circular in the most satisfying way. Of course, the evidence is the reason to think he's guilty, but the way Chappelle says it, dragging out the pause before the word evidence, makes it sound like a profound revelation, like he went on a long philosophical journey and arrived at the most obvious conclusion in the most hilarious way. And then he hit them with the robbery angle. He pointed out that virtually every celebrity in LA had been robbed. Rihanna, Keanu Reeves, Paris Hilton, but not Diddy. And he had a theory about why. The idea of breaking into Diddy's house, only to find Diddy already there, already hosting a gathering with guests who were not expecting to be caught in the act of attending. Chappelle painted that picture so specifically and so chaotically that the audience was practically screaming. What Chappelle does in moments like this isn't just comedy, it's cultural processing. He gives people permission to laugh at something they don't quite know how to handle emotionally. And right now, the whole country needed permission to laugh at that situation. And Chappelle gave it to them. Moment number 8. Katt Williams calls out the culture on fake street credibility. We're back to Katt for number 8, and this one is less about a specific rapper and more about an entire performance of toughness that Katt Williams has zero patience for. There's a pattern in hip-hop, and Katt noticed it long before it became a mainstream topic of conversation, where artists build entire brand identities around criminal reputations that don't quite match their paper trails, the legal kind of paper trails. The moment Katt zeroed in on this, he didn't just make a joke, he made an indictment. He pointed out that the relationship between talking crazy and living crazy has been completely severed in modern rap culture, and that the people consuming this content deserve to know the difference. Be careful how y'all listen to that rap music. That rap music is a soundtrack to Nash. And then he gave the crowd the perfect comparison. He talked about the difference the right music can make in any given moment. The idea that certain songs could make criminals pause mid-crime, pull out their phone, and call their mama instead is both ridiculous and strangely persuasive. This is Katt Williams, operating at the intersection of comedian, cultural critic, and street philosopher. The joke works on the surface, but underneath it is a genuine critique of how music shapes behavior and how the people making the most dangerous music are often the safest people in the room. Think about that the next time you hear a rapper talk about shooting somebody on a track. Then Google their criminal record. The results might surprise you, or might not. Katt certainly wasn't surprised. Moment number 7. Dave Chappelle on the freak-off parties and Carl Winslow. Number 7 takes us back to Chappelle's extended Diddy material because one roast was not going to be enough. And honestly, the Carl Winslow moment deserves its own segment. In the same LA set where Chappelle had already laid waste to the Diddy situation, he kept going. He talked about how a lot of his friends had been at certain parties he'd heard about in retrospect, and he joked about how the only reason he wasn't at those parties was because, as he reasoned with devastating self-awareness. I thought about it for a minute. I said, "Oh my God, I'm ugly." The crowd lost it, because it's the most Chappelle thing possible, to make himself the butt of the joke while still roasting someone else. He's not saying he was moral. He's saying he wasn't invited. The implication is that the guest list was based on looks, not virtue. And then he deployed the Carl Winslow reference. Carl Winslow, Steve Urkel's dad, the lovable, mild-mannered family man from Family Matters. Chappelle claimed he'd seen something on the internet suggesting that Carl Winslow, fictional TV family man, had allegedly been involved in one of these gatherings. And Diddy's alleged response when confronted about it? Feels good to make another man do your bidding? The crowd's collective realization of what Chappelle was suggesting, wrapped in the most wholesome 90s TV reference possible, created one of the most unexpected laugh explosions in recent stand-up history. This is the Chappelle signature move. Take the most disturbing thing imaginable and attach it to the most innocent possible cultural reference point. The contrast is so violent and so perfect that your brain can only respond with laughter. And then, naturally, Chappelle made himself the victim one more time. I wasn't invited. 2 words. Entire crowd gone. Moment number 6. Katt Williams on Shaq's family dynamics. We revisit Katt and Shaq for number 6, because the first Shaq segment was the setup. This is the extended cut, and it goes places. After establishing that Shaq should not be allowed anywhere near undercover police work, Katt turned his attention to the domestic situation. Specifically, Shaq's wife. Specifically, the idea that Shaq's ex-wife Shawnee, mother of his children, is actually the most intimidating person in that entire family unit. Shaq ain't even the gangster in his family. His wife is the gangster. She's my size. She has given birth to children who were, according to Katt Williams, at least 3.5 years old when they emerged. Children who could look Katt Williams in the eye from birth. Children who had the nerve to put their hands up like they were going to be picked up. The image Katt builds here, of Shaquille O'Neal's offspring being born at approximately Katt Williams's adult height, is so absurd and so specific that it lands with the kind of force that only the truth can generate. Because we've all seen Shaq's kids, we know this isn't that far off. And when Katt got to the part about confusing Shaq's baby by offering candy versus a whooping, and the baby just parroting back whatever the last thing said was, the crowd didn't just laugh. They wheezed. They grabbed their neighbors. They pointed at nothing. The reason this material hits so hard is the specificity. Katt doesn't say Shaq's kids are big. He gives you the 1.5-year delivery date. He puts the baby at eye level. He assigns dialogue to the baby. This is world building in a roast. Moment number 5. Dave Chappelle saw through the industry in 2004 while everyone else was still asleep. For number 5, we need to step back from the individual jokes and look at the bigger picture. Because one of the most underrated things Dave Chappelle has ever done is survive. In 2005, at the height of his success, with a $50 million deal on the table from Comedy Central, Chappelle walked away. He left for South Africa, He gave up the money, and the entertainment industry, and a lot of rap culture with it, treated him like he'd lost his mind. But look at what's happened since. Everything Chappelle was quietly making jokes about in 2004, the power dynamics in entertainment, the things that get required of artists who want to stay at the top, the freak-offs and the parties and the control, has been substantiated, documented, charged, and prosecuted in federal court. Chappelle told an interviewer he left because he started to feel like the laughing wasn't pure anymore, like he was laughing at something that wasn't funny, like the industry was laughing with him in a way that made him uncomfortable. That's not just a comedian reading the room. That's a man reading a room that most people still couldn't see into clearly for another 15 years. The making the band parody, the Diddy jokes, the industry critiques. These weren't just bits. They were testimony from someone who got close enough to see things and was smart enough, or scared enough, to leave before those things got close to him. Dave Chappelle lost $50 million to keep his soul. And now, in 2024 and 2025, the entire culture finally understands what he was seeing. That's not just a hilarious moment. That's prophecy with a punchline. Moment number 4. Katt Williams and the formal education of Katt's audience on hip-hop fraud. Number 4 puts us back in the classroom, and Professor Katt Williams is not taking questions until the end. There's a version of celebrity roasting that is purely surface level. You hit the outfit, you hit the haircut, you hit the latest scandal, you take your bow. Katt Williams has never operated on that level. Not once, not even in his earliest work. What Katt does, and what makes him arguably the most important comedian of his generation, is he connects individual absurdity to systemic pattern. He doesn't just roast a rapper. He roasts what that rapper represents, what allowed that rapper to exist, and what it says about all of us that we kept buying the music anyway. When Katt talked about rappers who've never seen a courtroom rapping about federal time, he wasn't just making a joke about one person. He was indicting a system where authenticity became a product that could be manufactured and sold, and where the people selling it suffered no consequences for the fraud. All of the rappers that you know that never been to jail and never got in any trouble with the law, but they talk as if their life is opposite of that, like those are federal informants. The reason this joke is funny is the same reason it's devastating. Because Katt isn't wrong. The logic of it, that someone who pretends to be a criminal while working with law enforcement is, definitionally, an informant, holds up structurally. He didn't just make a joke, he made an argument. And the fact that the crowd laughed so hard at it meant they recognized the truth of it instantly. You don't laugh that hard at something that doesn't ring true. You laugh because Katt said something you already knew but couldn't articulate. That's the Katt Williams effect. He hands you the language for what you already feel. Moment number 3. Dave Chappelle's extended Diddy stand-up was a cultural reckoning disguised as comedy. Number 3 takes us deeper into what the 2024 Chappelle set actually was, because calling it a roast doesn't fully cover it. When Dave Chappelle took the stage in LA and started talking about Diddy, the entertainment world was in a specific kind of suspended tension. Everyone had seen the hotel footage, everyone was aware of the federal charges, everyone had opinions. But in that particular moment in culture, nobody quite knew how to talk about it. It was too serious to be casual, too recent to be historical, and too familiar to too many people, in too many rooms. Chappelle walked in and cut through all of it. He made the audience laugh at the absurdity of the evidence. He made them laugh at the idea of being left off the guest list of something genuinely horrifying, and somehow made that the punchline. He built the visual of walking in on something terrible and being unable to leave, the locked door, the voice saying, "You ain't going nowhere," in a way that was funny and deeply unsettling at the same time. You try to run out. You run out. The door is locked. You turn around. All of a sudden you hear, "You ain't going nowhere." The laughter in that room was the kind of laughter people have when something has been too tense for too long and someone finally gives them permission to exhale. Chappelle was the permission. This is comedy as cultural therapy. There are things that communities, especially black communities, especially entertainment communities, need to process, and there are very few spaces safe enough to process them. A Dave Chappelle set is one of those spaces. He made people laugh about something that had made them profoundly uncomfortable, and in doing so, he gave them language. He named something. He made it speakable. That's what the greatest comedians do. Moment number 2. Katt Williams refuses to back down. Ever. Number 2. And this is where we get into what actually makes Katt Williams different from every other comedian in this conversation. Most comedians roast celebrities as a performance. They set it up, they deliver, they take the bow, they cash the check. When the celebrity claps back, or when the industry gets uncomfortable, most comics find a way to soften the edges, walk something back, or redirect. Katt Williams does not do that. He has never done that. In a culture that rewards compliance, Katt Williams has made non-compliance his entire brand, at enormous personal cost and with enormous personal conviction. Think about the timeline. Years of people writing Katt Williams off as erratic, as troubled, as past his prime, all while Katt was in studios, on stages, in interviews, saying things that eventually turned out to be verified, documented, confirmed truth. He talked about industry manipulation when talking about industry manipulation was treated as paranoia. He talked about what powerful people require of artists who want to stay powerful when that conversation was considered tabloid noise. He talked about authenticity and fraud when people told him to stay in his lane and just be funny. And then the receipts started arriving. And they kept arriving. And they're still arriving. Here's the thing about Katt Williams that the comedy world is only now beginning to fully reckon with. He was not performing outrage. He was not playing a character. He was a man who saw the entertainment industry clearly, described what he saw as precisely as he could, through the only language he had, which was comedy, and held that position through every attempt to discredit him. That's not a comedian. That's a witness. And the moments he spent destroying rappers weren't really about the rappers. They were about the system that built them, packaged them, and sold them to a public that deserved to know what they were actually buying. Katt Williams has been on the right side of history for 20 years. It just took the rest of us that long to catch up. Moment number 1. The full Chappelle Katt legacy. Comedy as the last honest institution. Number 1. And this one isn't a single moment. It's the whole picture. Go back through everything we've covered today. Katt Williams on fake street credibility. Katt on Shaq and the absurdity of power. Katt on the informant theory. Chappelle on making the band. Chappelle on the Diddy parties. Chappelle on the evidence. All of it. Now ask yourself, where else would you have heard any of this? Not on the news. Not in music journalism. Not from other artists who had too much to lose. Not from people inside the industry who were too close to see it or too compromised to say it. You heard it in comedy sets, in stand-up shows, in sketches that aired on Comedy Central at midnight, in Instagram videos and freestyle roast sessions. Comedy has always been the court jester position. The one person in the room with permission to say what's true because everyone can dismiss it as a joke. What Katt Williams and Dave Chappelle understood, what they've always understood, even when the rest of us didn't, is that the permission the court jester gets is not a privilege. It's a responsibility. When you're the only one allowed to tell the truth, you better tell it, all of it, clearly, without apology, and again the next night if they didn't hear you the first time. That's what these two men have been doing. Not just roasting rappers for content, not just looking for viral moments, but using the one platform available to them, the stage, the microphone, the laughing audience, to say the things that the culture needed someone to say before it was too late to say them. And now, in 2025, we're watching in real time as the things they joked about become federal cases, become headlines, become conversations that even the people who dismissed Katt Williams as crazy are suddenly very serious about having Katt Williams was not crazy. He was early. Dave Chappelle did not walk away from $50 million because he was confused. He walked away because he understood something about where things were going, and he wasn't willing to be complicit. That's what separates these two from every other comedian who's ever thrown a punchline at a rapper. They weren't just trying to make you laugh. They were trying to make you see. So there you have it, 13 moments, 2 legends, and a body count in rap egos that we honestly lost count of. But here's the thing we need you to sit with. The next time you're watching a comedian go after someone in the music industry, whether it's Katt, whether it's Chappelle, whether it's someone new, don't just laugh and scroll. Listen, because sometimes the punchline is actually a prophecy, and the joke is actually the most serious thing anyone said all year. Now we're coming back to that question we asked you at the top. Katt Williams or Dave Chappelle? Who's more savage? Drop your answer in the comments right now. This poll is live, and we are reading every single one. And if you made it this far, you clearly have taste. So smash that subscribe button, share this video with the most opinionated person you know, and hit the bell so you don't miss what we're dropping next. Because trust us, you do not want to be the last one in the room to hear what's coming. We'll see you in the next one.